need to define in the same level of granularity the partners that we want to work with as we do the customers we want to work with. And by extension, the partners we want to work with are the people that can bring the customers we want to work with to us. Now, there's many different flavors of partner sales, and our partner motion, I don't know exactly what you call it, is where we reach out to folks where we primarily don't have any kind of revenue share or financial incentive for them, and we just try to tell them how great we are and how much the companies they work with can benefit by working with us in hopes that they will make introductions for us, which is difficult.
How does AI play a role in keeping this ideal partner profile current?
I think there are two things that I'm thinking about with AI right now. Number one is the ability for AI to take the next step forward from what we can get in the programmatic data sources. The second piece is, how do we use AI to actually do this analysis to help identify what are the things that really make the difference between an ideal customer and one that's not, as well as by extension, an ideal partner and one that's not. Welcome to Go-to-Market Science. In this podcast, we share tangible, actionable playbooks from the trenches, working as go-to-market strategy and RevOps consultants for our clients here at Union Square Consulting, and candid conversations with revenue leaders in the market that have been there. Now let's get into it.
It's about time we got into a topic we don't talk about much here, even though it's a big part of how USC has grown for the last 10 years, and that is the partner channel. Today, we're breaking down how to figure out your ideal partner profile, what good partners have in common, and why so much effort gets spent on the wrong people. Thank you so much, Eddie, for doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting one because, this is a topic that I haven't done as much research on or had as much education or training or institutional knowledge from other organizations. This is purely what I've learned by doing the last 10 years. And so in some ways it's more valuable because this is just direct hands-on firsthand experience from generating millions and millions of dollars in closed won recurring revenue through this partner channel. And then on the other hand, it's something I haven't spent as much time thinking about as other things that we talk about in our content. And so it'll be interesting to dive into this and just speak solely from firsthand experience.
Mm-hmm. And we typically talk a lot about ICP and buyer personas. So how does creating an ideal partner profile relate to or differ from those two things?
Well, I think fundamentally it's the same concept, right? We need to define in the same level of granularity the partners that we want to work with as we do the customers we want to work with. And by extension, the partners we want to work with are the people that can bring the customers we want to work with to us. Now, there's many different flavors of partner sales, and our partner motion, I don't know exactly what you call it, is where we reach out to folks where we primarily don't have any kind of revenue share or financial incentive for them, and we just try to tell them how great we are and how much the companies they work with can benefit by working with us in hopes that they will make introductions for us, which is difficult. It's different than channel sales where there might be commission or revenue share involved or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's also a similar motion in that we're reaching out to a partner in hopes that they work with the types of companies we want to work with, and they will in some way, shape, or form facilitate our ability to work with those end customers and generate revenue off of those end customers. And so we can't do that if we are targeting the wrong partner profile, because if we're reaching out to these partners and they don't work with our customers, which I have done thousands of times and learned this the hard way, then you just end up wasting everyone's time.
And I kind of already know the answer to this, but for the sake of our audience, how much of USC's business has come through the partner channel? How valuable has it been for us, and how much has it really costed us over the years?
This has been the vast majority of our business. And it's ironic because I never worked in any level of partner sales before I started this company, but it just seemed obvious to me. I should say I never sold through the partner channel. I was the recipient of sales through the partner channel through many different mediums. And so I had a lot of experience being on the other side of the table and some perspectives that was really helpful when I, started this motion. But we started this from day one here at USC almost 10 years ago at the time of this recording. And this has been by far and away our largest channel, without a doubt. Our second channel is obviously marketing. I shouldn't say obvious, but it is our marketing channel in vis-a-vis content like this podcast. And that has really been taking off the last few years, but it still really can't compete historically with what we've done with partners.
So explain what our ideal partner profile looks like and how you were able to develop that.
For me specifically, through sheer trial and error, I came up with 3 pieces of criteria that I think are really important for a partner for us. And I think this applies to pretty much every partner motion for any company out there. So number 1, the company that we want to partner with has to talk to our ICP. If they don't talk with our ICP, if they don't work with our ICP, then it's of zero value to tell them how great we are because they can't introduce us to people they don't talk to. Number 2, they need to talk with our ICP. And specifically, I skipped over buyer personas, right? Now, to a lesser extent, maybe you can get an introduction, but it's going to be a lot harder if you are working with partners that only talk to people in organizations that don't make decisions or influence decisions about purchases that relate to your product or service. Secondly, they need to talk to your ICP and the personas in your ICP about the thing that you do. In our case, we do go-to-market architecture. By the way, that's a recent iteration of our positioning that I'm constantly working on. And if they're not talking about go-to-market architecture, if we talk to a partner that, say, for example, talks to our customers about payroll, it's going to be a really uphill battle to make an introduction for us. And thirdly, they need to benefit directly from the work we do. So let's say, for example, that there's a marketing agency out there and they work with the same kind of companies that we work with, and they work with the same people in those companies that we work with. And they talk to their customers about go-to-market all the time. All of this makes sense so far. But if we come in and we revolutionize their go-to-market architecture, they benefit in 0 ways. Well, they might pay lip service to us. They might entertain a conversation. They might even make a one-off introduction just out of the kindness of their hearts. But they are not going to focus energy on trying to feed us if they're not getting anything out of it. This is where revenue share obviously comes in. But since we don't really do revenue share with most of our partners, there's some exceptions. Like there's some marketing agencies and sales consultancies that we're open to, to share the love. But we've worked primarily with private equity firms and venture capital firms and vendors like Salesforce in the past. And it would be unethical for us to, send them money. And that's been our primary source of business. And so the only way that we can benefit them is by finding a way in our work to actually provide that benefit. And so the example that I'll use to make this tangible with private equity and venture capital firms is that they want to get an exit from their portfolio company. If we come in and we drastically improve go-to-market and not only help them generate more revenue, but also do it at lower cost with increased predictability, then that becomes a more valuable company that they can exit and get a return for themselves and for their investors. And so the individuals that we work with in those organizations benefit in 2 ways. Number 1, sometimes they have a share in the fund, and so they're going to benefit financially by that company being more profitable and more valuable. And secondly, we tend to work with the people that are focused on go-to-market, and they have specific KPIs for their jobs that they need to improve revenue production, costs, efficiencies, et cetera, that they're being judged on. And if we do that, then we are benefiting them directly. Whereas someone else in that same organization, let's talk about maybe somebody on the investment team, they're going to benefit far less because the impact of our work gets diluted through each company, each fund, et cetera. And they're not being judged specifically on go-to-market metrics and the efficiency of the go-to-market engine. And so it's a lot harder to make a case to them that they should prioritize thinking about us over all the things that they could be working on in a given day.
And it's interesting because whenever I think of partner channels outside of USC, I think of, partners that get a direct monetary commission for selling, their partners' products and stuff. So I think that's a huge distinction to make when developing your ideal partner profiles. Like, how are they benefiting from you? Because it's going to be a slightly different profile if they benefit in a different non-monetary type of way.
Yeah, and this is where I'm slightly out of my depth. At the same time, I have worked at 2 Fortune 500 companies where I have sold a slew of internal products and worked with internal partners, as well as to some extent external products. So 2 tangible examples. I worked at Wells Fargo where we had 186 different lines of business. I was a business banker. I worked with small businesses, and I literally had just a slew of business cards on my desk for everything you can possibly imagine for equipment financing and factoring, which is where you can basically finance your accounts receivables, and SBA loans, and you just name it, right? And I would have those people reaching out to me and trying to develop a relationship, despite the fact that we're in the same company. They still need to get mindshare from me because those, 35 business cards sitting on the back of my desk, I'm not necessarily going to introduce all 35 of those business cards to every person that I talk to, right? I worked at Salesforce, same thing. We had all these different product lines. We'd have people fly in from different parts of the country and try to pitch us on the product and tell us how great the new product that we just acquired was and how we should sell it to our customers. I was a core AE for context. So I'm talking to our customers about Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and then every other product under the sun. And then to a lesser extent, you had these thousands and thousands of Salesforce ISV partners that were constantly, banging on my door or calling my cell phone, trying to get my attention so that I could tell them about the integration tool with Gmail and Salesforce, or, the outreach tool, or the contact tool, or what have you. And even today, I get people reaching out to me here at USC trying to get us to partner with them and send our customers their way for their products. And so for literally 25 plus years, I've been on the receiving end of this. And everything always sounds nice inside of a pitch deck. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, I'm going to wake up every day. I'm going to open up my laptop as the person that would be selling, as the person being the recipient of this partner outreach. And I'm going to decide whether or not that partner is a priority for me to even think about. And it's a real challenge that people have to face, even if there's a monetary incentive. And one of the things that I saw at Salesforce that I thought was really interesting is that we would get actual commissions and quota relief for selling these partner products out in the Salesforce ecosystem. But it was such a small amount of money that for me, it didn't matter. It's like I got $500 or even $5,000 of quota relief for selling this product on the Salesforce platform. And I've got $1 million quota. And like many salespeople, I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about hitting my quota, getting my bonus, getting promoted, and or getting fired, or putting on a performance plan, And a partner can come to me and tell me that they have the greatest thing since sliced bread. And if that's not going to move the needle for my goals, I'm not going to spend my time thinking about them all day, every day.
So out of the 3 criteria that you mentioned then, needing to be people who talk to your ICP, needing people who can bring up what you do organically and something that directly benefits them. What happens if they don't meet one of those criteria? Can they still be a good partner, or do they need all 3?
I think in that order, it's a stretch, right? So if they don't talk to your ICP, I think you're dead in the water. Like, how are you going to get a customer if they don't talk to the people that you want as customers? If they don't talk to the right people in those organizations, then now you're asking them to make an introduction to somebody who will then hopefully make an introduction to someone else. And that can work, but that's a much steeper battle, right? And so what I would ask is, if you have 2 groups of partners and you could choose between one or the other, where should you focus your energy? And this is the whole idea of ideal partner profile and ideal customer profile. We could sell to anyone in the world, but who's the easiest to sell to? Now, it's going to depend on how big these potential partners are, or how big the ocean of partners are out there. And you have to obviously draw the line at something that makes sense for your organization. But in my experience, both on the receiving end and the selling end, you're not just reaching out to somebody once or twice and then, hey, can you introduce us to your customers? This is an ongoing relationship that you're building and nurturing and investing massive amounts of time and money and thought. And if you're doing that and focusing on the wrong individual or company, and they're talking to the wrong people in the organization you want to work with, and you have this uphill battle, I would just ask why. And maybe the answer is because it's profitable and it works, and there's not a better option. But if I could choose between the 2, I'd rather talk to partners that are talking to the actual people in the organizations I want to work with than different people that I'm hoping to make that introduction. Okay, now let's go next on the list. Do they talk about what we do? Again, if they don't talk about what we do, that's going to be a huge stretch. And I don't know why, but I always gravitate to life insurance as an example. Every single person that I talk to on a daily basis has or needs life insurance. I think that we can all make the argument that you should probably have life insurance. Yet there are 0 times ever that I've ever talked to anybody about life insurance other than right now on this podcast. The CROs we work with need life insurance, but that is not a part of my natural conversation. And there is a list of 8 million things that benefit them personally and professionally, even within business, even within B2B, even within go-to-market, that are never, ever going to talk to a CRO about, because it's just not part of my natural talk track. And I'm not going to introduce something foreign into that talk track and disrupt the relationship that I have for no reason. because there's already so many problems that the people that we all work with are facing every single day that it's hard enough to find time to talk through those problems. I'm not going to go and like introduce something else to that conversation. So I think it's just a lot easier. I mean, I'll give you a concrete example here. When I was at Salesforce, we had Heroku, this platform for developers. To this day, I don't really know what Heroku does or how to describe what they do. And Benioff, like a year or two after buying or building it, I don't even know how it was became a part of Salesforce, had this session called "What the F is Heroku?" Because literally none of us knew what Heroku was. And the idea is that we're going to go to the people in the organizations that we work with that are developers or running development teams, and we're going to tell them how great Heroku is for doing software development as part of the Salesforce product suite. And our reaction was, we spend all day, every day talking to sales leaders and marketing leaders and customer service leaders or customer success leaders. This is what we spent years learning about. This is what we understand. These are the relationships that we have. And now you want me to pivot to go talk to the technology leader, which sure, I talk to tech leaders, fine. But I'm talking to them about development, and I don't understand anything about software development. I don't understand the tech stack that you need for software development and how this is better than using AWS, this, that, or the other. And it's just this massive uphill battle. And I don't know if Salesforce has figured that out. Now Heroku is this massive product. Sorry, I'm not reading the financial statements for Salesforce on a daily basis. But just during my time there, we had zero success selling it, at least the people that I worked with. Maybe different teams and different focuses, they did a better job. Because it's just such a massive stretch. Whereas when we acquired Pardot and ExactTarget, it was a lot easier to say, you're talking to sales leaders every day and marketing leaders about Salesforce. Why don't you talk to them about how they could do email marketing and how they could better qualify their inbound leads? It's like, okay, that's a very logical extension.
So what happens, or what are the ways a partner can look like they pass all these criteria, but they still actually don't, and they're not actually a good partner?
I think the first is that they work with companies in your industry, but not companies in your ICP. So again, I'll share a tangible example. I can't even begin to tell you how many venture capital firms I've talked to that do seed stage investing. We don't work with companies that have 500,000 or $1 million or $2 million in revenue. Like they're not yet ready to solve the problems that we solve. In theory, they could. Like in theory, if you're going to hire 2 sales reps, you should have all your ducks in a row, all the things that we talk about. But at the end of the day, they're just not going to do that. And they're not going to spend, we charge as much as like hiring a full-time sales rep. So are they going to hire us or hire sales rep number 2 or number 3? It's just such a massive uphill battle. And I can't begin to tell you how much time and energy I have spent having conversations with VCs that primarily do seed stage investing. And why? Because I'm not doing my homework to figure out if that VC actually works with the companies that we want to work with. And there's nobody to blame but myself, but it's just something that's so easy to overlook, especially if that VC has a big, sexy name and you think, wow, this is some big VC that everybody should want to work with. And then I realize, wait, they don't work with the types of companies that we can help the most.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about when it comes to the second criteria, needing them to be able to bring up your company organically? Couldn't you just coach the company or their reps on how to bring you up?
You could, and this ties into the incentive, right? So if we're talking about channel sales, where we're paying out these massive commissions and massive revenue shares, and the company and the rep are both chomping at the bit to sell our product, then sure, of course. Now, as I said, I'm basing all of this just on firsthand experience. I have not gone down the rabbit hole and tried to become an expert in channel sales. I can just say that like I spent years at both Wells Fargo and Salesforce selling all these different product lines, and every single new product that's introduced is this massive like learning curve. And so the first thing that I have to do is like figure out who am I talking to and what's the conversation that I'm having with them and what's my incentive to do so, right? And I'm trying to think of good examples here. I mean, I've seen spiffs and other things where it's like I'm getting 1.5x commission or 2x commission or this, that, the other. But at the end of the day, like the lift is so heavy. I'm like, fine, 2x commission, great. But it's 10 times harder to sell. So I could just go sell Sales Cloud twice, and I know exactly how to do that. There's 0 like additional calories. Or I can go try to sell this new product to a new buyer persona vis-a-vis a new conversation, all of which I'm extremely uncomfortable with. where am I going to have the most success? And so I can just tell you tangibly, like when we did this with Pardot, I remember struggling to sell Pardot in my first year at Salesforce because I just couldn't understand the talk track of how to talk to marketing leaders, how to talk about marketing tools, what problems we were solving, what problems they were facing, et cetera, et cetera. The following year, I finally had some success. And because Pardot is a relatively expensive product, it made a very meaningful dent in my quota. I think like it made up maybe 20 to 30% of my entire sales. So that's a really massive thing that justifies that level of investment. But it was a massive investment for me to learn how to sell Pardot, coming from understanding how to talk to sales leaders about sales tools and sales process and sales metrics and sales reporting.
Quick pause. Everything we talk about on this show, diagnosing go-to-market ops, prioritizing projects for revenue impact, processes, metrics, insights, building a predictable go-to-market engine, we've built frameworks for all of it. They're free and ungated on our website, unionsquareconsulting.com/frameworks. The link will also be in the show notes, so make sure you check that out. All right, back to the episode. What kind of sales enablement or operational help and support did you get in figuring that out that somebody listening to this could emulate?
Great question. I would say in the beginning, a lot and still not enough. And in the end, a lot more and maybe enough. So when I was at Salesforce for like 3 years, and I think that they acquired Pardot like at the very beginning of my tenure there. And I only say that like I had all this experience selling Sales Cloud, not that I actually had been there very long, but just I'd been using Salesforce and Sales Cloud and talking to sales leaders, and I'd been in sales, and it was just something that like, obviously you would understand a lot easier than if you've never worked a day of your life in marketing. So what we experienced was, you'd have these reps quite literally fly in. All the reps we worked with were based in Atlanta, and I was in New York. So they'd fly in, they'd give us all these coaching sessions and lunch and learns, and they would take us out to dinner and schmooze us. And fun fact, to this day, the most expensive dinner I've ever gone to was with my Pardot rep. So I'll just tell you the story behind the scenes really quickly. So she comes into town and she's like, I want to take you guys all to dinner. And she was in town for like 3 or 4 days. And she's like, who wants to go to dinner? And the entire team is like, it's Tuesday. Like, I don't want to go to dinner on a Tuesday. Like, I'm tired. Like, I want to go home. And I'm like, I'll go to dinner. Like, and she's like, where should we go? Like, I don't know New York. Where should we go? And I was like, hold on a second. So you have budget to take the entire team to dinner? She's like, yeah. And I was like, and your manager has no idea like the names of the restaurants here. So I like text one of my friends and I'm like, hey, what's the nicest, most expensive, but like best restaurant in New York? And she's like, go to Bernardine. It's just like I don't remember if it's 3 Michelin stars, but like the guy that runs the place, he's like, was good friends with Anthony Bourdain and he's on the show all the time. I think his name's Eric Robert. And so we went and got like the tasting menu at Bernardine. I'm not normally one to drop $1,000 on dinner out of my own pocket. So that remains to this day the most expensive dinner I've ever been to. And she brought her like SDR with us. So it was just like 3 people, but it was very fun. But the whole idea was like, even though we were in the same company, like she was literally spending corporate money to schmooze us so that we could, go out and sell this product, which is obviously something you do in channel sales when you're not inside the same company. In addition to that, we had all these training sessions, all this learning and education. Ironically, I spent a lot of my time on the HubSpot blog because HubSpot just had better content than Pardot and still does. And then we're really struggling with it as an organization. And I remember at one point in time, we had an executive that stepped in to run sales and marketing for Pardot. And he started training us on these whiteboard sessions, which to this day becomes something that like I've always really valued in like my toolkit. And he trained us like via video on how to go into a customer and whiteboard out like the problems that they're facing in marketing, how to solve those problems, and then how a tool like Pardot could help solve those problems. And that was really impactful because it really tied in, here's a problem my customer has, which by the way, relates to sales and not just marketing, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to fix the conflict between sales and marketing, right? We're trying to get agreement on what is a qualified lead. How do we follow up on that lead? How do we convert it to revenue? So it's already a natural overlap with sales. If I'm talking to a sales leader and they're asking me, well, I need to get more leads. I need to get more pipeline. How can I do this? Should we do outbound? Should we do inbound? This, that, and the other. It's very, very relevant to a sales leader. Whereas if I call that sales leader and I'm like, I want to talk to you about how your dev team stands up their tech stack we're both just like, I don't know what we're talking about here. Like, it's just so far, it's just such a stretch. With Pardot, it's not much of a stretch, but it was still a steep learning curve. And so they did all of those things. And then I just had to invest a lot of my own time in learning that, as did every other AE at Salesforce. I'm not trying to say I'm special here. But the reason that we all did it was because there was a direct incentive, and it was like a natural extension of the conversations we were having. I'm already talking to sales leaders. They have problems with inbound leads. They're fighting with marketing. This is something I'm running into in my natural order of conversations. I have a solution for this that I can learn about. It's going to have a really serious impact on my job security, my paycheck, and my ability to get promoted. I'm benefiting directly. The company's benefiting directly. Check, 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 and check. And I could go through a list of hundreds of other products at both Salesforce and Wells Fargo, and that I get pitched today that don't check those boxes. And as a result, I do not spend a minute of my time thinking about them.
I think that perfectly explains the next question I had, which was, how much does a partner need to benefit for it to matter? I think that's kind of the crux of everything, is the partner needs to benefit enough so that they make sure that they're talking about it organically in front of the right people, your ICP.
Yeah. And I also want to caveat this, because we do not do rev share with any of our partners that sell to our customers. I think we have in the past, but it's just never been a meaningful thing. And I also sort of reached the conclusion pretty quickly that we are getting paid to consult our customers and to advise them. We're not Salesforce reps selling a product. We are literally getting paid to give people advice, as well as to put hands on keyboards and implement things. And it feels a bit unethical to then push a product on a customer because we're getting some kind of a kickback somewhere. No judgment against other people that are doing it, but ultimately, I just want to help our customers, and I want those customers to be successful and tell great stories and tell their friends and their peers in the market about the great work that we do, so that we can get more customers, we can grow our company. And so the way that I benefit through our technology partners is by having a better mousetrap to give our customers to solve their problems. And so half the time, I'm actually reaching out to these tech partners and I'm saying, hey, I heard about your product through other people. I hear it's great. I think our clients could benefit. I want to learn about it. But only if we check those three boxes. It's got to be for a product that's specifically for our ICP, that helps the buyer personas in our ICP. It's got to be part of what we do. I don't care if you have the world's best payroll software. It's not something that I'm going to spend time thinking about. Even if somehow there's some relationship with the CRO there, I don't know how that would work, but it just doesn't matter to me. And then the way that we would benefit is that it has a tangible impact on our customer, specifically to the extent that we can tell stories that we drove success in the organization. So for example, if we go in and we implement some outbound tool, and the customer books an additional $30 million of pipeline because we implemented outreach or artisan, and also coupled that with all of the processes that we design in the organization, and now we have a story to tell about how we helped a company generate $30 million in pipeline, then we are benefiting directly, even without getting some kind of a kickback.
Absolutely. But in terms of people listening to this who have a company where maybe they do have kickbacks that they need to give for their partner companies, how does the commission structure come into this?
Yeah, so I was just about to say that, right? So again, I'm only speaking from firsthand experience of being a rep in seat at Wells Fargo, at Salesforce, and to a lesser extent, being the recipient of these pitches here at USC. And, especially being a quota carrying rep, you're just worried about saving your job. Especially when I was at Salesforce, and I know this is true for many reps in B2B tech. It's just so incredibly hard just to hit quota and just save your job. That's all you're thinking about. So even with additional commission, I'm also thinking about quota relief. And I'm also thinking about is this going to help my customer to the extent that I build a better relationship with that customer and I can then upsell them later, right? I mean, I think there's a balance of trying to do the right thing for the customer and also just being selfish and looking out for your own best interests. And hopefully you're in an organization where those things overlap. At Salesforce, I was lucky enough to be in a position where if a customer wasn't successful on Salesforce, then it significantly inhibited my ability to upsell them 6 months later. And so I had a vested interest in wanting to see them be successful so that I could selfishly sell them more stuff and hit my quota by the end of the year. And I think that if I am going to have somebody come and pitch a product to me, to pitch to my customers, it's got to check all those boxes. And then it's also, if I am worried about the financial incentive, it's got to be really meaningful. And I've been in so many situations where I'm like, hey, I mean, that's cool and all, but it's going to like take so many calories for me to sell this thing. And it doesn't make a difference to me either with my quota relief or like financially. So it doesn't matter. I mean, so tangible example here, Salesforce would do these, like not Salesforce, but Salesforce partners would do these lunch and learns all the time in our office. It's like, hey, we have like free sushi and you can come into the boardroom and grab the sushi. You just have to listen to this pitch for this product company. And I'm just like, okay, cool. And like, then of course they're always like, you get this cha-ching, you know, you're going to get X amount of quota relief and X amount of commission, this, that, and the other. And I would just ignore it. And then sometimes my customers would buy that product anyway without me doing anything. And I just get free money, which is always cool. But the problem would be, it's like, oh, like you just got like $1,000 or $2,000 of quota relief. And I'm like, my quota is $1 million. I am not going to go learn some new platform and new product so that I can make a 1% dent in this thing that could literally cost me my job. Like I need to hit $1 million or I'm out on the street. I don't have time to like be thinking about how you're going to like add $1,000 here. And the pitch is always like, well, it's so easy. Like, this is a great product. It fits with your customer, yada, yada. I'm like, I have to learn it. This isn't something that I can just like take 30 seconds and just throw at somebody. At least me personally, I need to understand the product and how it benefits the customer, what the talk track is. And that takes significant amounts of energy. And I'm already struggling to do that with our sales tool and our marketing tool and our customer success tool and the 85 other tools that we have in our suite. And so if your thing doesn't have some like really meaningful difference for me, it's tough. I'll give you another example here. Financial force was a really big thing when I worked at Salesforce. And for anybody that's not familiar with Financial Force, and it's been a while for me, it basically integrates Salesforce with accounting and gives you all of these, benefits that are going to relate to the relationship between sales and finance. They also had like a pretty meaningful like impact on our commissions and our quota relief. But I do remember thinking, wow, like I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 deals across my team and other teams. And it's like really cool that like Bob over here just closed a deal and got like $30,000 of quota relief and a big fat commission check. But this is going to be a really steep learning curve for me. And if I'm only getting $30,000 out of it against $1 million quota, I don't know that I can justify spending all my time trying to learn that platform.
Mm-hmm. So
now maybe I was thinking about it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the number one AE at Salesforce, and maybe that's why. But that was a challenge that I was thinking about is if I don't hit quota, I'm going to lose my job. And I don't know that I have all day today to learn Financial Force.
So what does all of this tell us about how a company or CRO listening to this can develop their partner program or their ideal partner profile? Keeping this in mind that like a company, a partner could have all 3 criteria down, but it still isn't enough for the salespeople in that company to really promote it and to the amount that would be beneficial.
Well, I think if you have all 3 criteria, it is enough, right? Because you have a partner who's talking to the right people about the right thing, and they have a significant tangible benefit from you coming in and offering your product or service. Those are the 3 boxes for me. So if you check all 3 of those boxes, if I'm an individual in an organization and I feel that you have a significant ability to impact my KPIs, my job security, my ability to get recognized and promoted and to get more money out of the company that I work for, then I'm going to put time and energy into helping you achieve that end. Then, of course, you have training and all those other things. But I think the point of this podcast and the newsletter that we're going to write on the back of this podcast, which will be linked in the show notes, we'll have it out before this podcast, is that this is a framework to think about your ideal partner profile. Now, by extension, we're also going to do a newsletter and a podcast about how to build an always-on living ICP that is AI enabled. And that is going to go much deeper into sort of like the nuts and bolts of how to do this. And all of that will apply to ideal partner profile as well. But I've talked to people before where they have some kind of a channel sales motion and I say like, do you have an ideal partner profile defined? Do you have partner personas defined? And they say, no, we don't have that. We just have our ICP defined. It's like, okay, well then that means that your team is probably going to waste a lot of time with the wrong partners.
So apart from these 3 criteria, then what else should we be keeping in mind in defining this ideal partner profile?
I think the rest of it is going to overlap pretty significantly with all the concepts that, we're going to share in the ICP document as well, right? So we need to think about, first of all, how do we define the ideal customer profile or ideal partner profile? How do we measure this? We want to look at customers that have, high lifetime value and low churn and high customer satisfaction. And by extension, we want to look at the partners that introduce us to those customers, right? We want to look at the partners that are going to introduce us to a lot of those customers. And we're going to get lots of opportunities and high close rates and all of those things, right? This is all pretty basic and obvious, but it is important to do the exercise of actually running that analysis. And then we need to think about, how do we define those customers and those partners? What are the firmographic details, the technographic details? What kind of intent signals, what kind of engagement with marketing would like an ideal customer have for us? And then does that translate into ideal partner profile? In our case, about 50% of our partners have actually come to us via our marketing channels. So it's been really interesting to see that, we're out there reaching out and trying to get meetings with folks. And just as often, they're coming to us because they're engaging with our marketing. That's the same core concept as thinking about inbound or all-bound in go-to-market with direct customers, right? And then you have to think about how you're keeping this up to date on an ongoing basis. And so if I keep going, I'm just going to regurgitate the other newsletter and the other podcast that we will have out by the time this one is published. But it's important that this doesn't get stale. Your business evolves, the market evolves, your customers evolve. And so by extension, the partners that are going to be a best fit for you are also going to evolve.
Mm-hmm. How does AI play a role in keeping this ideal partner profile current?
So I think AI has, again, I don't want to go too deep on the other content that we're going to create, especially because I haven't really thought through it enough yet. We haven't finished the newsletter or the podcast. But I think there are two things that I'm thinking about with AI right now. Number one is the ability for AI to take the next step forward from what we can get in the programmatic data sources. So for example, we go into Zoom Info. We go into, maybe Clay's a bad example because it's so AI driven, but we go into these tools and we grab a list of customers or potential partners, right? Then we ask, a specific question that can't be answered in those programmatic tools. Like, does this organization have this particular department, or do they have this number of people, or do they have this problem, or are they profitable? Like, do they put content? I mean, there's just like a limitless number of examples that might land in your ICP or IPP definition that you can't filter for in Zoom Info. So how can we use AI to go find that information before we have any humans that are manually going and looking at those websites and looking at those accounts to further refine the list of folks that we're going after? I think that's one piece. The second piece is, how do we use AI to actually do this analysis? So if we get together our ICP and we say, okay, these are our best customers, here's all the data that we know about them, we can feed it into AI and have AI analyze it and say, how do we best define our best customers based on the information that you have? And this is a balancing act, because do we have the right data points? That's what we're feeding the AI. But I think it's really interesting, especially in terms of not doing this one time, but on an always on system, to continue iterating on that so that we can keep feeding the AI our best customers and then continuously update what data points we're feeding the AI, including using the AI to find those data points, and then use AI to analyze that customer list, as well as maybe like our lost opportunities, our churn customers, things like that, to help identify what are the things that really make the difference between an ideal customer and one that's not, as well as by extension, an ideal partner and one that's not.
I'm not sure if you're able to discuss this yet on this podcast, but if you are, can you tell us a little bit about the stuff that we're starting to work on for helping our clients stand up AI workflows and getting this AI foundation in place?
Oh man, like this is so fast evolving. There's so much going on there. It's pretty hard to summarize it here. And I think like everyone is working on this. So I don't know how valuable this is, but I'll just share one point that I think is important. The biggest thing that we're consistently seeing is that we need to have the right foundation in place in order to leverage AI. So let's run with this example that I just gave. If we don't know who our best customers are and we have no data on them, where do we go? If we just dump in our entire customer list into Claude and say, tell me who my ICP is, we're going to get really bad results. So we need to have this like foundational layer of quality data in order to feed the AI and expect any reasonable results. Before we can even get this foundational layer in place, we need to define our processes. We need to define our ICP, in this case, our IPP, our ideal partner profile, our personas, and we need to define the step-by-step process to take a customer or a partner from an unknown into a qualified opportunity, into a closed won customer, into a renewal, and into an expansion. And the reason that it's so important to define that process is that process defines the data points we collect along the way and defines how we execute to collect that data. Now, I'm all for automation, data enrichment tools, anything that we can do to limit the human effort involved. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of really valuable information that will only be collected if we get humans to execute the right process, A. And B, even if we can't automate everything, even if we have all of our call recordings set up and we're feeding it all into Salesforce, we have to know what questions to ask. We have to try, I'm a really big believer in tools like Attention right now that will take the call recordings and transcribe them into Salesforce. But what do they transcribe it into? They transcribe it into fields in Salesforce that ask specific questions. What is the customer's decision-making criteria? If you don't ask that question, you're not going to get an answer to it. And then if that's the thing that makes the difference, I'm just stealing from Medicare, as to whether or not you might close a deal, then your AI is not going to be feeding you with valuable intelligence on whether or not your pipeline is healthy. So you've got to build that foundational layer before you can layer everything on top. Then once you layer the AI on top, it's really important to constantly iterate. You have to update the context and the instructions and continue to do so on an ongoing basis, or it will either not really work very well in the first place or stop working because things have evolved and it hasn't evolved with it. And then beyond that, it's like there's so many use cases that we could go after. And this is something that I've seen with the non-AI tech for the last 20 years. It's only going to work as well as the organization focuses on it. So if the CRO in the organization says, you know what, we need to tackle our partner program. And one way we need to do that is we need to leverage AI and be really laser focused on the right partners. And this is how we're going to build a system that does that. And we're going to stay on top of it and monitor it and make sure that we're seeing a good partner should be introducing us to X number of potential customers that close at a certain rate and become X amount of revenue in order to be a good partner. And if we are not looking at that information and constantly monitoring that and feeding and updating the AI to do a better job of that, well, then the AI is not going to work magic.
Yep. Garbage in, garbage out. And then you also need somebody with a human in the QA seat to make sure that the stuff that your AI workflows are outputting is actually accurate to the inputs that have been given it. Because AI still hallucinates. It's not perfect.
Yeah, as I think everybody on Earth has learned over the past year or two. But I think it's really exciting what's possible right now. It's just that it's so funny because I feel like when I'm on LinkedIn, it's just all AI, AI, AI. And when I talk to CROs about the actual problems, it's all foundational stuff. It's like our outbound program is completely broken. We are trying to go after anyone and everyone. We're spraying and praying. And the same would be true with partners as well. And I think even to a greater extent, because I think a lot of people aren't even thinking about, are we really carefully selecting the right partners that we go after? Obviously, there are mature channel sales organizations that have thought this through, but in B2B tech, there's so many companies that are just now starting to launch a partner program, and they don't have the same rigor that they're putting in inbound and outbound, and it's going to burn up a lot of time and energy as a result.
And I'm also very excited for when we eventually develop our AI Foundations framework. I think that will be a very good one and one that's very much look forward to with our audience.
The frameworks seem to be popular with people, so I'm always excited to dive into it. There's just so much work. I'm always like, God, another framework. Okay, how much time and effort is this going to take us? But people seem to like it. So, shameless plug. If anybody is wanting to see our frameworks, they're on our our website, unionsquareconsulting.com/frameworks. Although as we speak, we're trying to redesign that page so that it's even easier to navigate and find all of our written content in one place. Probably be updated by the time this podcast is released.
Oh, baby. And the link to that page will also be in the show notes if you're able to click on that and not just driving in the car. But I just had one last question for you, Eddie, just to tie everything together and look at where we go from here. How do we take this ideal partner profile and develop it into an actual working model that drives revenue?
So the way we take an ideal partner profile and turn it into something that drives revenue is the same way that we take an ideal customer profile and turn it into something that drives revenue. We need to create a continuous system that is constantly monitored and improved over time, right? So if we take our ideal partner profile and we write up a Google Doc and we share it with the entire sales team and then check the box and call it a day, then two things are going to happen. Number one, that information is going to get stale eventually. And so we will end up targeting the wrong people as our business and the market evolves. And number two, it's going to get forgotten about and it's not going to be executed upon. So we have to think about how to embed this in our entire system, right? So let's start with outbound. And when I say outbound, I'm including our partner channel. So we need to define the territories and target lists of partners that we're going to go after. And that needs to be directly informed by our ideal partner profile and partner personas definition, right? So we need to go and build that out. And then every time that we update that, we need to go back to it. In conjunction, as I mentioned earlier, we need to be constantly updating this definition, right? So as we land more and more partners, get more opportunities from those partners, and close and lose deals from those opportunities, we need to continue to feed the system, whether it's AI and or human analysis or a combination of both, which is probably recommended would be a combination of both. We need to be looking at this and saying, like, has our ideal partner profile changed? Maybe we thought it was this, but what we're actually seeing is this type of partner is actually sending us more customers in our ICP than we would have expected. So we need to be constantly updating that. And I think the best way to do that is to create a cadence. This is something like the RevOps team could obviously own, and create a cadence to say that we're going to update this every so often, maybe every quarter, every 6 months, every 12 months, right? And then I think that the more that we can leverage AI and create this like as an always on system, the more we can take the outputs and feed it back into the system and reanalyze it to determine what the input should be. And then of course we have the process of reaching out and nurturing partners, which is a whole separate topic that we're going to go into in a separate framework and a separate podcast. But I think like as it pertains to ideal partner profile, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're constantly looking at what those inputs are, what the ideal partner profile is, what the actual target list is, who we're reaching out to, and then what are the outputs? What are the successes that we're having? Who's meeting with us? Who's engaging with us? Who's sending us referrals? And are those referrals closing? And are they turning into good customers or bad customers? That I think is how you turn this into sort of an actionable thing that really drives revenue, as opposed to a document that sits somewhere in your file system that nobody ever looks at.
And I know I said that was the last question, but I just thought of another one. Is there a benchmark metric or a quantitative way to know that what you're getting out of your partner program is worth the effort that you're putting into it?
Yeah, ultimately it would be CAC or CAC payback, right? So, the rule of thumb is you want a CAC payback of less than 12 months. For anybody listening to this not familiar with CAC payback, it's just looking at like, what does it cost us to land a customer versus what is the actual gross margin that we earn off of that customer. And for whatever reason, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's measured in months. So like how many months does it take us to recoup that investment? So if we can break even in 12 months, a lot of people see that as a very positive thing. We could also look at LTV to CAC. What's our lifetime value for a customer? And is that more than 3-to-1 versus what it costs us to land a customer? So if it takes us a year to recoup our costs and the customer sticks around for 3 years or longer, then great. Like we have a pretty profitable go-to-market motion. And so we could just look at what does it cost us to run a partner program and how many customers do we get from that partner program? That would be like the ultimate benchmark for me, right? If we're not looking at financials, then we would be looking at, how many people do we have working partners? How many resources are we, investing there, and then how many customers and how much revenue are we getting back? And just like any other go-to-market motion, it's constantly evolving. It could be working one day and not working the next day. And we have to constantly evaluate if we should invest more in it, if we should step in and try to improve the way things work so we can improve outcomes, or if we need to, cut bait because it's not working.
Well, I think that is all that we had for today's podcast, but you can find the link to the newsletter that will go out in conjunction with this podcast in the show notes. And if you want help setting any of this up, or need help with your strategy on how to do it, or hands-on keyboards doing it, give us a shout. The link to our website is in the show notes. It's www.unionsquareconsulting.com.
Awesome. We will probably also have a full framework on partner sales by the time this podcast goes out as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Eddie.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for listening to the episode. If this resonated, please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. It helps us reach more people, and you get our latest and greatest content without having to search for it. And if you're looking for hands-on help in go-to-market strategy and/or RevOps, please reach out to us. We help our clients with everything from annual planning to improving processes in go-to-market, implementing systems to support those processes, and go-to-market AI. We're always happy to offer a free consultation to help you identify the best opportunities to improve your go-to-market engine with or without our help. You can find us at unionsquareconsulting.com, and the info will be in our show notes.